Close your eyes. The room is dark, the world outside quiet. The weight of the day has fallen from your shoulders, and now you find yourself standing at the edge of something vast, an inner journey that will take you across the entire cycle of life. Tonight, you begin not with light, but with darkness. For before healing, before wisdom, before joy, there is always the descent. You breathe slowly. Inhale, hold, exhale. Each breath loosens the armor you have carried, and as your body begins to relax, your mind begins to remember the unspoken truth of human existence, that every life, no matter how bright, begins with uncertainty, pain, and the rawness of being dot. This is where our story begins, not in triumph, but in the shadow. The universality of pain. You are not alone in this. From the beginning of time, every great soul, every philosopher, every leader, every visionary has stood where you stand now, face to face with doubt, loneliness, and sorrow. Socrates, awaiting his trial in Athens, spoke of his the inner voice that often warned him against action but never guaranteed safety. In his solitude, he questioned not only the city but also himself. Was he a fool? Was he wrong? The night before he drank the hemlock, he felt the weight of human fragility. And yet, that moment of despair also revealed to him something eternal. That truth lives even when the body dies. Or consider Abraham Lincoln, sitting in the flickering lamplight of the White House during the darkest days of the Civil War. Letters poured in with pleas, curses, and accusations. His heart carried grief beyond imagination, the death of his own child, the rivers of blood staining the land. And still, he wrote, I am driven to my knees by the overwhelming conviction that I have nowhere else to go. Pain was not a stranger. To him, it was his constant companion. You too know this feeling, the heaviness of carrying more than you thought you could, the hollow silence when words fail, the nights when hope feels like a distant star. Pain is the first teacher, and it teaches us not by comfort, but by stripping away illusions. Jung and the Descent into Shadow. Carl Jung once wrote that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The shadow is everything within you that you fear, deny, or hide. It is the anger you suppress, the grief you bury, the loneliness you refuse to name. To heal, you must first look at it, and to look, you must first descend. Imagine yourself walking down a spiral staircase, each step carrying you deeper into your own unconscious. The air grows cooler, quieter. On the walls, faint shapes flicker. Memories, regrets, wounds from childhood, words spoken in anger, dreams left unfinished. You recognize them all, even if you wish you did not. And yet, here in this descent, something stirs. Because what you face is not only your wound, but your possibility. The shadow is not only darkness. It is also the soil from which light grows. A chorus of voices history whispers to you in this silence. Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years, spoke later of how the darkness of his cell became a crucible. In his memoir he wrote, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Fear, doubt, and despair were his daily companions, yet they shaped in him the resilience to forgive even his oppressors. Viktor Frankl, surviving Auschwitz, told the world that suffering cannot always be avoided, but it can be given meaning. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And Mother Teresa, in letters discovered only after her death, confess to decades of spiritual dryness. The silence and emptiness is so great that I look and do not see, listen and do not hear. Even she, who gave light to millions, carried within her a cavern of shadow. Their voices join yours tonight, reminding you that what you feel is not weakness, but humanity. Your own descent now. Return to your breath. Inhale, hold, exhale. Picture yourself in a wide field beneath a night sky. The stars above are faint, almost swallowed by clouds. You feel the cool grass beneath your feet, and yet a weight presses upon your chest. All around you, the silence grows thicker. This is your descent. It is not punishment, nor is it failure. It is the first step in healing your shadow. As you walk through the field, you begin to sense the presence of your forgotten selves, the child who cried alone, the youth who dreamed and was told no, the adult who pretended strength while aching. Inside, they gather around you like silhouettes, quiet and watchful. Do not turn away. They are you, and tonight you welcome them home. Letters to the lonely pause. Now, and imagine this. Every great thinker once wrote letters, journal entries, confessions in the dark. They too poured their despair onto pages that would one day inspire the world. Rainer. Maria Rilke wrote in Letters to a Young Poet, "Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final." These words reach you now, reminding you that your loneliness is not permanent, your pain not eternal. It is part of the unfolding. The rhythm of sorrow life is not a straight line. It is a rhythm. Joy followed by sorrow, sorrow followed by renewal. Just as night prepares the way for dawn, so too your pain prepares the way for wisdom. The Buddha's first noble truth was simple. Life is suffering, not as a sentence of despair, but as a recognition of reality. To deny sorrow is to deny life. Itself, to face sorrow is to open the doorway to compassion, both for yourself and for others. And so, tonight, as you drift deeper into stillness, you give yourself permission to feel, to ache, to grieve, to know that even here you are not alone. The first awareness of death every child, at some moment, discovers that life does not last forever. Maybe it was the loss of a pet, or the quiet whisper about a relative who passed away. The world suddenly felt unstable, uncertain, and from that moment, the awareness of death became a silent companion, always lingering at the edge of consciousness. You too have felt it, that shiver in the night when you realize that one day everything you know will slip away. The laughter, the rooms, the faces, even your own heartbeat. Jung once wrote that to live fully, one must reconcile with death, for it is death that gives life its weight. Without mortality, there is no urgency, no meaning, no true beauty, and yet the knowledge of death is also what terrifies us most. The philosophers of fragility listen now to the voices of those who faced mortality with unflinching eyes. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, wrote in his Meditations, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." His words were not a sermon, but a reminder to himself as he ruled an empire. Each decision he made, he measured against the fragility of his own breath, in a different age. Blaise Pascal wrestled with the same truth. When I consider the short duration of my life, swallowed up in the eternity before and after, he confessed, the silence of these infinite spaces frightens me. And in the modern era, the existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre declared, man is condemned to be free. Because if life has no guarantees, then meaning cannot be given. It must be created. All of them stood on the same fragile ground you stand upon now, the shadow of mortality now. Imagine yourself standing by a quiet river. The water moves slowly, reflecting the night sky. You kneel beside it, staring into your own reflection, and suddenly you see not only your face, but your shadow. Behind you rises the silent figure of mortality, tall, formless, inevitable. You cannot run, you cannot bargain. It follows you everywhere, a reminder of the limited time you carry. Do not fear it, for Jung reminds us that the shadow, once faced, becomes not an enemy but a guide. The presence of death is what calls you to live authentically, to drop the masks, to love without delay, to embrace your life not as eternal, but as infinitely precious because it is brief. Stories in the face of death. History is rich with those who transformed fragility into strength. Siddhartha, before becoming the Buddha, left the palace after witnessing old age, sickness, and death. It was not wealth nor comfort that awakened him. It was fragility. Seeing that nothing lasts, he began his search for the eternal truth within. Anne Frank, a young girl hiding in a secret annex, wrote in her diary how wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. Her words, written in the shadow of Nazi persecution, remind us that even when tomorrow is uncertain, today can shine. And Martin Luther King Jr., on the night before his assassination, said in his final speech, "I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but we, as a people, will get to the promised land." He knew the fragility of his own existence, yet his vision stretched beyond it. Their stories reveal that awareness of death is not paralysis. It is a call to courage. Your meditation on fragility, close your eyes deeper, breathe in, hold, breathe out. See yourself walking through an ancient library. Dusty shelves tower above, filled with countless volumes. Each book is a life, some short, some long, some filled with triumph, others with sorrow. You run your fingers across the spines and realize that one day your own story too will be placed here among them. How will it read? What words will fill its pages? Who will be changed because you lived? In this meditation, fragility is not an enemy. It is the quiet reminder that time is a gift. The balance of despair and meaning, of course. Fragility can also crush. For some, the weight of mortality feels unbearable. Nietzsche wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Without a why, fragility becomes despair. With a why, fragility becomes sacred. This is why shadow work matters. To heal your shadow is to find your why, the inner fire that makes existence bearable despite its fragility. Letters from the Edge. Listen to the words of Leo Tolstoy, who once fell into despair at the height of his fame. "What will come of what I am doing today or shall do tomorrow? Why should I live? Why wish for anything? Why do anything? Is there any meaning in life that will not be destroyed by death?" And yet, he did not remain in despair. From this question, he turned toward compassion, toward faith, toward service to others. Fragility, when faced, becomes transformation. Chapter 3. The weight of suffering breathes with me. Inhale, hold. Exhale. You have felt fragility. You have stood at the edge of mortality. And now you step into the heavier chamber of the human condition, suffering, for fragility whispers that life is short, but suffering declares that life is heavy. It bends the spine, darkens the mind, and breaks the heart. Yet paradoxically, it is also the crucible where greatness is forged, the universality of suffering from the beginning of time. Suffering has been the common thread of humanity. No culture, no individual, no age escapes it. Whether it is the grief of loss, the torment of injustice, or the silent ache of loneliness, suffering comes to all. Buddha's first noble truth was not a pessimistic cry, but a clear-eyed recognition. Life is dukkha. Life is suffering, impermanence, dissatisfaction. By naming it, he unveiled the path to wisdom. Jung echoed this when he said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. To awaken is to suffer, for the illusions of safety, control, and permanence must first be shattered." Historical echoes consider Nelson Mandela locked in a cell for 27 years, breaking rocks under the blazing sun. The world had forgotten him, his name forbidden, his voice silenced. Yet from that suffering emerged not bitterness, but the strength to lead South Africa into reconciliation. He later said, "I never lost hope that this great transformation would occur." Suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds meaning. Or think of Viktor Frankl in Auschwitz, watching friends and family perish. His book, Man's Search for Meaning, was not written from luxury but from the ashes of despair. He told the world, in some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of a sacrifice. And recall Mahatma Gandhi, fasting until his body grew frail, carrying within him the suffering of an entire people longing for freedom. His pain became a weapon stronger than violence. Each of these lives reveals the paradox. Suffering crushes, yet suffering also awakens. Your own shadow of pain now. Turn inward. Breathe slowly. You know suffering too. Perhaps it was a heartbreak, perhaps a betrayal, perhaps a grief so deep it seemed you would not survive. It may have come as illness, or as loneliness, or as silent battles nobody else could see. These wounds live within you still, carried in your shadow. You may have tried to push them away, to silence them, to pretend they never happened. But Jung tells us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Tonight, you do not run from your suffering. You sit with it. You hold it. You allow yourself to feel its weight, and in that stillness, something shifts. For by facing your pain, you reclaim its meaning. The crossroads of suffering history reveals two paths. Some are broken by suffering, their spirits hardened, their compassion withered. Others are transformed, their pain turned into wisdom, their wounds into bridges for others. Which path will you walk? Jung believed that the key lies in integration, in welcoming suffering into the wholeness of the self, rather than denying it. To reject suffering is to remain enslaved by it. To embrace it is to find freedom within it. A meditation of fire. Close your eyes deeper. Imagine yourself standing before a great furnace. Flames roar within, the heat nearly unbearable. At first, you resist, fearing the burn. But then you realize, this fire does not exist to destroy you. It exists to refine you. Step into it. The flames lick at your skin, but instead of pain, you feel release. The masks burn away. The illusions disintegrate. The false identities crumble. What remains is your core, raw, vulnerable, unbreakable. This is the secret of suffering. It is the fire that strips away what is false, leaving only what is eternal. Letters of endurance across history. Letters written in suffering became seeds of hope. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, imprisoned by the Nazis, wrote, We must learn to regard people less in light of what they do or omit to do, and more in the light of what they suffer. Rosa Luxemburg, jailed for her activism, wrote of watching a bird in the prison yard. I was so glad at the sight of it that tears came to my eyes. Even in suffering, beauty pierced through. And Alexander Solzhenitsyn, exiled to the Siberian camps, later wrote, "The suffering taught him truths no classroom ever could dot. Each word, written in pain, became a lantern for those who followed." The birth of resilience to have within you this capacity. Every wound you have carried has secretly grown a seed of strength. Every loss has expanded your compassion. Every tear has softened the soil of your soul. Resilience is not denial. It is not pretending the pain did not happen. Resilience is the alchemy of turning pain into wisdom. And tonight, as you rest, your shadow whispers to you, what you suffered did not end you. It shaped you. Excellent. Now the journey shifts from inward suffering to the outward cry that reshapes the world. Chapter 4. The Cry for Freedom. The birth of the cry freedom begins in shadow. Jung tells us that the shadow is not only darkness, it is power, energy, vitality hidden from consciousness. When a people or a person has been silenced, suppressed, denied, the shadow grows restless, and one day it bursts forth, demanding recognition. This is why the cry for freedom is universal. You feel it in your own soul when you have been silenced too long. The world has heard it in the voices of slaves, prisoners, visionaries, prophets, and dreamers. It is the voice that says, I am more than what you have reduced me to. Voices across history consider Moses standing before Pharaoh, trembling yet resolute, declaring, "Let my people go." His cry was not only for himself, but for a nation in bondage. Centuries later, in Athens, Socrates refused to bow before the court, choosing death rather than silence. His freedom was the freedom to think, to speak, to question. In modern times, Frederick Douglass, once a slave, stood before the world and declared, "I prayed for freedom for 20 years, but received no answer until I prayed with my legs." And Rosa Parks, weary from a lifetime of indignities, refused to give up her seat. That quiet act of defiance became a thunderclap heard round the world. These are not isolated stories. They are the echoes of the same eternal cry, the inner cry. But freedom is not only political, it is also deeply personal. You too have felt chains, invisible ones perhaps, forged not of iron but of fear, doubt, shame, or silence. You too have lived moments where your soul longed to speak, but your lips remained closed. Jung would remind you that inner silence is not harmless. What is repressed becomes shadow, and what is shadow seeks release. To heal, you must hear your own cry, so close your eyes now. Listen beneath your breath. Beneath your thoughts, there is a voice rising. It says, I want to live fully. I want to be free. Letters and speeches of liberation throughout history. This cry has been written in letters that shook empires. Martin Luther King Jr., in his letter from Birmingham jail, wrote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice. Everywhere, we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny." His words, written in a cramped cell, became the anthem of a movement. Simon Bolivar, writing to his people during the wars of independence, declared, "A people that loves freedom will in the end be free." And Václav Havel, the Czech dissident, who later became president, wrote in his prison letters, The salvation of this human world lies nowhere else than in the human heart. These voices remind us that the cry for freedom is not abstract. It is ink on paper, breath in lungs, courage in trembling hands. The shadow of oppression is not only external, it is also internal. Sometimes you become your own jailer, silencing your voice before the world does, accepting chains before they are fastened. But Jung's shadow teaches that what is suppressed does not die. It waits, it grows restless, and eventually it demands freedom. Your cry may not be for political liberation. It may be the cry to paint, to sing, to love, to be true to yourself. It may be the cry to finally lay down the masks you have carried for too long. Whatever it is tonight, you listen. A guided vision of liberation. Breathe again. Inhale, exhale. See yourself standing in a wide open field. Around your wrists are chains, heavy, cold, unyielding. You have carried them so long you almost forgot they were there. But tonight, something rises in your chest. A fire, a voice. It begins as a whisper, no more, then louder, no more, until finally you cry out with your whole being, I am free. The chains tremble, they fall, the weight disappears. Above you, the sky opens. A wind rushes across the field, carrying your cry into eternity. This is not fantasy. This is the truth of the human soul. The price of freedom is never free. It demands sacrifice. Socrates drank the hemlock. Mandela gave up decades. Harriet Tubman risked her life again and again. And yet, their suffering was not wasted. It became the seed of liberation for countless others. The cry for freedom always carries a cost, but the silence of oppression costs more. Wonderful the descent has carried us through sorrow, fragility, suffering, and the cry for freedom. Now the darkness begins to shift. A flicker glows, a fragile, trembling spark. Chapter 5. The spark of hope. The nature of hope is not optimism. Optimism is the assumption that things will improve. Hope is the deeper fire, the defiant belief that even if everything collapses, life can still hold. Meaning Jung understood hope, not as denial, but as integration. The shadow shows us our wounds, our mortality, our despair, and yet, by embracing it, we discover that light is born precisely within darkness. Hope, then, is the marriage of shadow and light. A whisper through history, hope has always arrived. As a whisper before it became a roar. When the Greek philosopher Epictetus, born a slave, taught his students that true freedom lies not in chains but in the mind, he was planting sparks in young hearts that would outlast Rome. When Florence Nightingale walked through the darkened halls of Crimean war hospitals with a lantern tending to the wounded, she was a spark. The soldiers called her the lady with the lamp. For them, the flame she carried was not only literal but symbolic, proof that compassion survives even in blood-soaked corridors. And when Anne Frank, hiding in the attic as war raged outside, wrote, "In spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart," her words became one of the most enduring sparks of hope in history. Hope in the face of despair. Consider the life of Nelson Mandela again. After decades in prison, when he could have emerged bitter, he chose reconciliation. His release itself was a spark of hope, not only for South Africa, but for the world. Or, think of Malala Yousafzai, who, after being attacked for seeking education, declared, "One child, one teacher, one book, one pen can change the world." Her Survival became not just her story, but a spark that ignited movements across nations. These sparks are not accidents. They are the natural response of the human spirit to unbearable darkness. Your inner spark now, turn inward, breathe again. Inhale, exhale. Think of a time in your own life when you thought you could not go on, and yet something, however small, carried you through. Maybe it was the smile of a friend. Maybe it was a word, a memory, a dream that refused to die. That was your spark of hope. Even now, in your shadow, it still flickers. It may be fragile, but it is alive, and tonight you breathe gently upon it, letting it glow brighter. The spark in letters and speeches. Hope has always been written into the margins of despair. Abraham Lincoln, in the middle of Civil War, wrote, "In a letter, the dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. As our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew." His words were not naive, but hopeful in the face of bloodshed. Winston Churchill, during the Blitz, told his people, "We shall not flag or fail. We shall go on to the end. We shall never surrender." His speeches became sparks that sustained a nation under bombardment, and Václav Havel wrote, "Hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense, regardless of how it turns out." These are not just words. They are sparks that lit the night of entire nations, guided meditation. The flame within. Close your eyes deeper. See yourself in a vast cave. The walls are dark, the air heavy. You feel lost, almost suffocated by the silence. Then a glimmer. A tiny flame appears in the distance. You walk toward. It is small, just a candle burning quietly in the dark. Yet, as you cup it in your hands, the darkness around you changes. Shadows still surround you, but they no longer overwhelm. This is your hope. It may be small, but it is enough. From spark to fire, history teaches that every movement begins with a spark. The spark of Rosa Parks refusing to move. The spark of Gandhi's Salt March. The spark of a wall falling in Berlin. What begins as fragile soon becomes unstoppable when nurtured. And so too with your life. The spark inside you, if tended, will become resilience, wisdom, and joy. Beautiful, we have walked through sorrow, fragility, suffering, freedom, and hope. Now, the spark must grow. It becomes a fire that transforms the soul. Chapter 6. The Fire of Resilience. The nature of resilience is not the denial of hardship. It is the art of turning wounds into wisdom, of transforming the ashes of suffering into the fire of strength. Carl Jung said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Resilience is exactly this. The refusal to let the shadow define us. The choice to use its lessons as fuel for our becoming. It begins as a spark of hope, but when tested by time, by pain, by loss, it becomes something greater. Fire. Stories of fire. History is the grand stage where resilience shines brightest. Think of Abraham Lincoln. His early life was marked by relentless failure, bankruptcies, lost elections, the death of the woman he loved. Yet each defeat forged him into iron. When he finally led his country through its greatest crisis, it was resilience, not genius, that sustained him. Think of Harriet Tubman. Born into slavery, beaten and scarred, she could have surrendered to despair. Instead, she became the very embodiment of resilience, leading hundreds of enslaved people to freedom on the Underground Railroad. Her fire lit the path for countless others. Think of Viktor Frankl, imprisoned in Auschwitz, watching nearly everything taken from him. He still found a reason to live, meaning. Out of unspeakable suffering, he forged the philosophy of logotherapy, the belief that even in the most hellish circumstances, man can endure if he has a why to live for. These are not isolated examples. They are proof. Resilience is the alchemy of the human spirit, the inner fire. Now breathe again. Inhale, hold, exhale. See yourself once more in the cave of shadows. But this time, the candle of hope you held is no longer alone. It begins to spread. One flame lights another, another and another. Soon the cave glows with firelight. This is resilience, the multiplication of your spark into something that cannot be extinguished. You are no longer merely surviving. You are burning, transforming the cave itself into a cathedral of light. Speeches of resilience. The fire of resilience has always been carried in words that shaped history. Winston Churchill, in the face of near defeat, declared, "If you're going through hell, keep going." His resilience became Britain's. Martin Luther King Jr., standing before thousands, proclaimed, "We will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope." Resilience made his dream immortal. Helen Keller, deaf and blind, said, "Although the world is full of suffering, it is also full of the overcoming of it." Her very life was fire. Resilience speaks, and when it does, it ignites others. Meditation, fire in your breath. Close your eyes. Breathe slowly. With each inhale, imagine drawing air into your chest. Not ordinary air, but fire. A warm, glowing energy that fills you with strength. With each exhale, release your fears, your doubts, your despair. Again, inhale fire, exhale shadow. Inhale resilience, exhale defeat. Feel the transformation inside you. What once was wound is now fuel. What once was scar is now flame. You are resilient. The turning of pain. Great resilience does not emerge without great pain. But pain is not only a destroyer, it is a teacher. The Japanese have a word, kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold. The cracks are not hidden, they are made beautiful. The vessel is stronger, more precious, because of its brokenness. So too with you. Resilience is your kintsugi. It is the fire that turns cracks into gold. Letters of strength. Consider the letters of Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor who wrote to himself in exile. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Or the words of Thomas Paine during the American Revolution. These are the times that try men's souls. He did not write them in victory, but in desperation. Yet his resilience gave strength to a nation on the verge of collapse. The fire of resilience is often kindled in ink before it blazes in history. Guided vision, walking through fire now, see yourself on a path. Before you lies fire, a wall of flame, frightening and fierce. At first, you hesitate, but then you remember. Fire does not only burn, it also refines. You take a step, then another. The flames do not consume you, they cleanse you. Each step through the fire burns away fear, weakness, self-doubt. On the other side, you emerge, not charred, but shining, stronger, brighter, more alive than before. This is resilience. This is your fire. The collective fire. Resilience is not only personal. Entire nations, entire peoples rise from ashes. Japan, after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, rebuilding into a global power. Germany, after devastation, becoming a center of unity and industry. Civil rights movements that rose after centuries of oppression, turning wounds into justice. Humanity itself is resilient. Like a forest after fire, life always returns, stronger, greener, richer, and so too does your spirit, beautiful. From the ashes of despair, we have now seen how resilience burns into fire. But resilience alone is not the end. It is the prelude. The fire clears the path for something greater. Chapter 7. The Call to Greatness. The birth of a call of a human life. Here's a call. Sometimes it is faint, like a whisper in the silence of the night. Sometimes it roars like thunder, demanding to be heard. This call is not about comfort, nor is it about safety. It is about becoming more than what the world expects of you. It is the voice of destiny, calling you into greatness. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." The call to greatness is exactly this, an awakening to your truest self, to the archetype within you that longs to emerge. History's echoes, think of Socrates, standing trial in Athens. He could have chosen silence, could have lived safely in obscurity. Instead, he declared, "The unexamined life is not worth living." His call to greatness was not survival, but truth, even at the cost of death. Think of Galileo, Impressioned, for daring to look through a telescope and say the Earth was not the center of the universe. He could have denied what he saw, but his call was greater than fear. His vision reshaped the cosmos. Think of Joan of Arc, a teenage girl who heard voices calling her to lead armies. Against ridicule, against impossible odds, she rode into battle, and though burned at the stake, she became eternal. Greatness is rarely chosen. It is answered the moment of decision now. Breathe. Close your eyes and imagine yourself standing at a crossroads. One road is familiar, lined with comfort, safety, and the approval of others. The other is rugged, steep, and dark. Few walk it, yet in the distance a light shines. This is the call to greatness. It is rarely the easy path, but it is the only path that awakens your soul. Words that ignite greatness. Greatness has always been called forth by words, living words that cross centuries. Consider Abraham Lincoln at Gettysburg, that government of the people, by the people. For the people shall not perish from the earth. He did not just lead a nation. He called humanity to believe in democracy itself. Or consider Nelson Mandela. Speaking after 27 years in prison, "I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society. It is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." The call to greatness burned so deeply that even iron bars could not silence it. And listen to John F. Kennedy. "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." The call to greatness is always about serving something beyond the self. Guided meditation, the whisper of destiny now. Inhale deeply. Imagine yourself in a vast hall of silence, the chamber of your soul. You hear it faint at first, like a whisper. Behind your thoughts, the call. Your call. It speaks your name, not in sound, but in essence. It says, you were born for more. You were born not just to live, but to change. As you listen, the whisper grows into clarity. You begin to see flashes, visions of what you are meant to do, the lives you are meant to touch, the legacy you are meant to leave. The call to greatness is not loud, it is patient. It waits until you are ready, and tonight you are. The pain of refusal, many hear the call and turn away. Why? Because greatness is costly. Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, prayed in agony, "If it is possible, let this cup pass from me." Yet he answered the call. Moses resisted, saying he was slow of speech, but the call persisted, and he led his people out of Egypt. Even Buddha hesitated, torn between his palace life and the suffering beyond its gates. But he chose the path that awakened the world. Refusing the call may seem easier, but it leaves the soul restless. To refuse greatness is to deny oneself. The archetype of the hero Jung saw the hero archetype as central to the human psyche. It is the eternal image of one who leaves the ordinary, faces the unknown, and returns transformed. Think of Odysseus, of Gilgamesh, of King Arthur, of every hero who walked into darkness and emerged with light. The call to greatness is the awakening of the hero within you. It is the moment your soul remembers why it came into this world. Letters of destiny, the call is not always thunder. Sometimes it is written in ink. Albert Einstein wrote to a friend, "I have no special talent. I am only passionately curious." Yet that curiosity led to the theory of relativity. His call was in wonder itself. Florence Nightingale wrote letters in candlelight, fighting against indifference in war hospitals. Her call was compassion, and she answered it with the birth of modern nursing. Letters carry the tremors of destiny, the trembling first answers to greatness, guided vision, standing on the mountain now. See yourself climbing a mountain. The ascent is steep, your legs ache, your breath shortens. Yet you keep going. Finally, you reach the summit. The world spreads beneath you, valleys, rivers, cities, oceans. For a moment, you stand between earth and sky. Here, the call is clear. It fills your entire being. You were not born to stay in the valley. You were born to rise. You hear it again. Become who you truly are. Greatness beyond self. True greatness is never about self-glory. It is about service. Mother Teresa once said, "Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love." Her call was not to power, but to compassion, and it shook the world. Mahatma Gandhi chose non-violence, proving that, even without armies, one can move empires. His greatness was humility armed with truth. Greatness always bends toward others. The call is never just for you, it is for those who need you. Yes, Lila, from the call to greatness, we now step into the living flame it ignites, the power of the human spirit. Chapter 8. The Power of the Human Spirit. Asterisk, asterisk. The indestructible flame. Close your eyes. Imagine a single candle in the dark. Its flame trembles, yet it endures. Now imagine that candle lighting another and another. Soon the darkness is no longer vast. It glows with hundreds of flames, then thousands, then countless more. This is the human spirit. Fragile in one, unstoppable in many. History has tested it with prisons, chains, wars, and plagues. And yet, time after time, it has risen, defiant, radiant, unbreakable. The Spirit in Struggle in 1941. As London burned under bombs, Winston Churchill declared, "We shall never surrender." His words were not mere defiance, they were spirit. Spirit that turned rubble into resilience, despair into defiance. In South Africa, Nelson Mandela walked free after 27 years behind bars. His body was aged, but his spirit was untouched. He emerged not with vengeance, but with forgiveness. That is power no prison can crush. In India, Mahatma Gandhi faced an empire with nothing but cloth and sandals. Yet his spirit was greater than armies. In a gentle way, you can shake the world, and he did. Guided meditation, the inner fire breathes slowly. Place your hand on your chest, feel your heart beat. Each beat is a drum, steady, ancient, eternal. The same rhythm that pulsed in every ancestor who survived storms, famines, wars. The same rhythm that carried prophets, poets, and dreamers. Within you burns the flame of every generation. It whispers, I will not break, I will rise. No matter the weight you carry, no matter the chains that bind you, the flame remains. Spirit. In letters Anne Frank, hiding in a small attic, wrote, in spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. Her words, penned by a child, have outlived armies. Viktor Frankl, in a concentration camp, wrote, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Letters, fragile sheets of paper, carried a spirit stronger than death. The collective rising, the power of the human spirit is most luminous when shared. Think of the Berlin Wall. For decades, it cut a city, a people, a world in two. Then, one night in 1989, the spirit of freedom surged through crowds. Thousands gathered, not with weapons, but with hope, and the wall crumbled, not from force, but from spirit. Think of Selma, Alabama, 1965. Marchers walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, beaten but unbowed. Their spirit did not die. It grew until civil rights became law, until justice became louder than silence. One person's spirit inspires another, then another, until movements are born, until history bends. Guided vision, rising with the many now. Imagine yourself standing in a vast field. At first, you are alone. The wind is cold, the night is dark. But then you see one torch, then another. Soon the field glows with thousands of lights. You realize you are not alone. You never were. The power of the human spirit is not solitary. It is collective, shared across time and space. It is humanity's eternal uprising. Spirit in science and discovery, the spirit is not only found in struggle, but in wonder. Marie Curie, working in dim laboratories, refused to surrender to failure. Her spirit of curiosity gave birth to modern science. The Wright brothers, mocked as fools, believed in flight. Their spirit tore humanity from the ground and gave us the skies. And in 1969, when Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon, humanity heard, that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. The spirit had carried us to the stars. Jung's vision, the collective unconscious, saw the human spirit not as an individual spark, but as an ocean. Beneath each mind, he said, lies the collective unconscious, a shared memory, a shared force carrying archetypes, dreams, and truths. When the human spirit rises, it is not just one person. It is the ocean itself, swelling, crashing against the shores of history. The spirit in dreams, consider Martin Luther King Jr. declaring, I have a dream. His dream was not his alone. It was the dream of millions. Dreams are spirit in vision. They allow us to see beyond the walls of the present into the possible. And when shared, they become movements that no empire can contain. Guided meditation, breathing the spirit inhale deeply. Feel your lungs expand. Exhale slowly. With each breath, imagine inhaling not just air, but spirit. The courage of Mandela, the compassion of Mother Teresa, the vision of Einstein, the dream of Martin Luther King. You are not separate from them. Their spirit flows into you. and yours flows onward, into those who will come after. The power of the human spirit is infinite because it is shared. The phoenix of humanity. Every age has tried to break humanity with plague, with tyranny, with despair. And every age, humanity has risen like a phoenix. The Renaissance rose after the Black Death. The Enlightenment rose after centuries of darkness. Democracy rose after empires. The spirit cannot be extinguished. It transforms. It returns. It soars. Closing of chapter 8 tonight. You have felt it, the indestructible flame. It is the spirit that has carried humanity through shadow into dawn. The spirit that cannot be broken, cannot be buried, cannot be silenced. It lives in you. It lives in all, and it will rise again wherever chains fall heavy. From this spirit, we step forward into the mystery of suspense, where the path turns, where shadows deepen before the dawn. Yes, Lila, after the flame of the power of the human spirit, the story now turns toward tension again. For every ascent invites trial, every dawn brings its shadows. This is where suspense deepens, where history and psychology remind us what rises must be tested. Chapter 9. The shadows return, the rhythm of light and shadow. Close your eyes. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast forest at night. The stars shimmer above, the torch in your hand burns bright, but around you the trees whisper, shadows stretch, long, bending, twisting. This is life's rhythm. Every light creates shadow. Every triumph awakens doubt. Every great spirit is tested. We often think victory is final, but history tells another story. The shadow always returns, not to destroy us, but to demand transformation. The shadow in history, think of Rome, mighty and invincible. Legions conquered lands, emperors built monuments. Yet within, corruption grew. Shadows of pride, decadence, and betrayal devoured it from the inside. Rome fell, not by enemy hands alone, but by its own darkness. Think of the French Revolution. Born in fire and freedom, its cry was liberty, equality, fraternity. But soon the shadow returned in the form of terror, guillotines, tyranny. The dream became nightmare. Think of the modern world. Technology promises unity, yet shadows emerge. Isolation, addiction, surveillance. The very light of progress casts a darker silhouette. Jung's warning, the shadow archetype. Carl Jung taught that the shadow is the part of the psyche we deny, repress, or ignore. Individually, it is our anger, fear, selfishness, violence. Collectively, it is war, prejudice, exploitation. When ignored, the shadow grows stronger. When denied, it becomes destructive. But when faced, when integrated, it becomes power. Wisdom, transformation, the shadow's return is not punishment. It is a call to wholeness. Guided meditation. Meeting the shadow. Breathe deeply. Feel your body resting. Now imagine walking through a hallway of mirrors. Each mirror shows you not as you wish to be, but as you truly are. You see your strength, yes, but also your wounds, your fears, your failures. One mirror shows your anger. Another shows your envy. Another shows the pain you never voiced. This is your shadow. Do not look away. Do not deny it. Look into its eyes. Say silently, I see you. I accept you. I will not run. Notice how the shadow softens when seen. Notice how fear becomes understanding, how pain becomes power. Letters from Darkness in 1915. During the Great War, a soldier wrote to his wife, I no longer know why I fight. I no longer know who I am. The world feels emptied of meaning. His letter was shadow speaking, the collapse of certainty, the confrontation with despair. In 1946, after the bombs of Hiroshima, a Japanese doctor wrote, "We have unleashed a power that shadows the future of humanity." Shadow not just in cities destroyed, but in the conscience of science itself. Letters from history remind us the shadow always returns, not as an enemy outside, but as a truth inside. Suspense in the human story. Suspense is not merely a tool of novels, it is the heartbeat of history. When Martin Luther King Jr. marched, there was suspense. Would the shadow of violence silence him? When Mandela walked free, there was suspense. Would bitterness consume the chance for peace? When astronauts stepped into space, there was suspense. Would humanity's reach exceed its wisdom? Suspense is shadow pressing against light. It makes history uncertain, alive, trembling with possibility. Guided vision, the dark forest you walk into the forest. The torchlight flickers. Around you, eyes gleam in the dark. You feel fear, doubt, uncertainty. But then you realize these are not predators. These are your shadows, waiting to be faced. You breathe, you step forward. And with each step, the eyes turn into stars. The forest becomes less frightening, more alive. This is how suspense transforms, by courage. The shadow of Liedershaven. The greatest spirits wrestled with shadow. Abraham Lincoln, the liberator, lived with deep depression. He wrote, "I am now the most miserable man living. If what I feel were distributed to the whole human family, there would not be one cheerful face on earth." Churchill, defiant in war, called his depression the black dog. Mother Teresa, saint of compassion, confessed in her letters, "There is so much contradiction in my soul. I feel that God does not want me." The shadow's return is not failure. It is the crucible of greatness. Suspense and the collective today. Humanity stands in suspense. Climate change, war, inequality, shadows pressing at the gates. Will we turn away, deny, collapse? Or will we integrate, transform, rise? Suspense is terrifying because the ending is unwritten. Yet it is also possibility, potential, hope. Guided breath, holding the unknown. Breathe in, hold. Exhale slowly. As you hold the breath, feel the pause, the suspense between inhale and exhale. This is life itself, tension between opposites, waiting for release. The shadow is that pause. The unknown is that space. Trust it. Do not rush it. Suspense is the womb of transformation. The phoenix of suspensive return of shadow is a prelude to rebirth. The Renaissance rose from the shadow of plague. Civil rights rose from the shadow of injustice. Peace accords rose from the shadow of endless wars. The shadow does not mean the story is over. It means the story is alive. Yes, Lila. After the shadow's return, the path now sharpens. Suspense begins to demand decision. The story enters its crossroads, where choices bend. History, and where the inner psyche mirrors the turning points of civilizations. Chapter 10. Turning Points. The nature of a turning point. There are moments when time itself seems to hold its breath. Moments when everything before feels like preparation, and everything after feels like consequence. This is a turning point in your own life. You've felt them. The choice to speak truth or remain silent. The decision to love, to leave, to begin, to end in history. Turning points are magnified. Revolutions, discoveries, awakenings, collapses. Suspense builds into a storm, and then a decision, a step, a word, changes everything. The battlefield of Waterloo, June 1815. The fields of Belgium are wet with rain. Napoleon waits. The mud slows his cannons. The British wait under Wellington. The Prussians march to join. Hours pass. Decisions are delayed. Suspense builds then. The Prussians arrive. The tide turns. Napoleon falls. History pivots. Europe reshapes. One hesitation, one march, one rainfall, and the world moves in a new direction. Jung and the turning of the psyche. Carl Jung wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." The psyche too has turning points. The moment you face your fear instead of fleeing, the moment you integrate your shadow instead of projecting it, the moment you choose individuation, the path of wholeness over conformity. Just as history has Waterloo, the soul has its own battlefields. The choices we make in silence echo louder than cannon fire. Guided meditation, the crossroads. Close your eyes. Imagine standing at a crossroads under a night sky. 4 paths stretch before you. Each path leads to a different destiny. One path glitters with comfort, safety, the familiar. One path is dark, dangerous, unknown. One path is overgrown, difficult, yet promising renewal. One path disappears into mystery. You stand at the turning point. Your heart beats with suspense. Now place your hand over your chest. Feel your heartbeat. Listen. The turning point is not about certainty. It is about courage. Silently say, I choose growth. I choose wholeness. I choose truth. Step forward. The mist begins to part. The letters of choice turning points often arrive quietly, hidden in letters, journals, whispers. In 1776, Thomas Paine wrote, "These are the times that try men's souls." His pamphlet, fragile paper in trembling hands, pushed a nation to revolution. In 1945, a Japanese emperor, in a broken radio voice, told his people the war was lost. His words ended a world war in 1963. Martin Luther King Jr. stood at a podium and said, "I have a dream," a speech, a moment, a pivot for generations. Letters, speeches, voices, turning points are born not only in battles, but in words. Suspense at the edge of change, the suspense of a turning point, is different from fear. Fear paralyzes, suspense awakens. It makes you lean forward, waiting, like the instant before an arrow is released, like the silence before music begins, like the pause before saying yes or no. Suspense is the soul's drumbeat before destiny. Guided vision. The bridge. Imagine a great bridge spanning a canyon. Behind you lies the old world, mistakes, safety, shadows. Before you, a new horizon gleams. You step onto the bridge. It shakes. Wind howls. You want to turn back, but you keep walking, step by step, until suddenly the bridge steadies. The other side draws near. You realize the bridge was only unstable at the beginning. The path strengthens with commitment. This is the secret of turning points. The first step feels impossible, but it carries you toward transformation. The shadow at the crossroads. The shadow always appears at turning points. It whispers, "Stay where you are. Do not risk. Do not change." But Jung reminds us, the shadow is not the enemy. It is the guardian of thresholds. If you can face it, accept it, walk with it, you unlock a new level of being. The crossroads is not only external, it is inner. It is where shadow and self meet. The world's great turning points, 1453. Constantinople falls. The Middle Ages end. The Renaissance awakens. 1492. Columbus sails. The world expands, collides, transforms. 1969. A man steps on the moon. The horizon of humanity shifts forever. 1989. A wall in Berlin crumbles. Two halves of the world reunite. Each turning point was born in suspense, in shadow, in risk. And each one reshaped destiny. Guided breath, the moment of decision, hailed deeply. Hold. Now imagine this inhale is your hesitation, your suspense. Exhale slowly. Let it go. The turning point comes not in holding breath, but in release, in choosing, in acting. The eternal crossroads, every soul, every civilization, every age, always returns to crossroads. To turn is to live. To decide is to be human. To choose growth over stagnation is to walk the archetypal path of the hero. Tonight, you stand again at such a point. Perhaps quietly, perhaps invisibly, but the choice is before you. Will you stay in the old story, or step into the new one? Perfect, Lila. The suspense of crossroads now shifts into something greater, the blossoming of transformation. The pain has been endured, the choices have been made, and now the first light of renewal begins to rise. Chapter 11. The awakening of transformation. The first signs of change transformation rarely arrives in thunder or lightning. More often, it comes quietly, like green shoots pushing through winter's frozen soil, like a wounded bird testing its wings again, like the slow lifting of mist after a long night. You, too, begin to notice these subtle shifts within yourself. The shadows feel less suffocating. The choices you feared begin to take root in courage. Suspense gives way to breath, to momentum, to movement. This is the awakening of transformation, the first dawn after the longest night, the phoenix. Myth cultures across time tell the same story. The phoenix, a bird of flame, burns itself into ash only to rise renewed. It is the perfect symbol of transformation. Death into life, despair into hope, end into beginning. The Greeks wrote of it. The Egyptians told of Bennu, the bird of rebirth. Even in Christian mysticism, the phoenix became a sign of resurrection. Every soul carries this myth. Every civilization embodies it. When all seems destroyed, something new can emerge. Guided meditation. Rising from ashes, close your eyes. Imagine a great fire burning down everything you once clung to, fears, doubts, failures. You watch as they crumble into ash dot now. From the ashes, a single spark glows. It brightens, expands, reshapes into wings of flame. You rise. You are the phoenix. You are the living fire of transformation. Spread your wings, lift higher. Feel the weight of ash fall away. Whisper, I rise. I awaken. I transform. Transformation in history, transformation is never abstract. It is lived. Mahatma Gandhi, once a shy lawyer, humiliated in South Africa. He transformed humiliation into a philosophy of non-violent resistance, a force that would shake empires. Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years, he transformed bitterness into forgiveness, turning a prison cell into a school of leadership. Helen Keller, born into silence and darkness, she transformed isolation into wisdom, becoming a voice for millions. Transformation is not perfection. It is the courage to use brokenness as raw material for greatness. Carl Jung, on transformation Jung, called this process individuation. the integration of the fragmented self into wholeness. He wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Transformation is not about becoming someone new. It is about uncovering what has always been hidden and allowing it to live. The journey through shadow, choice, and suffering clears the way for this awakening. Suspense before breakthrough, but remember, transformation carries suspense, like the caterpillar in its cocoon, dissolving, uncertain, vulnerable. Inside, it cannot know if wings will ever emerge. So too with you. Transformation feels like both death and birth. Suspense lingers, but it is no longer despair. It is anticipation, the stirring of destiny, guided breath, the cocoon. Breathe in deeply, hold. Imagine yourself inside a cocoon, dark and safe. Now exhale. Feel yourself expanding, breaking open, light rushing in. With each breath, you stretch your wings wider. With each breath, you awaken more. The Renaissance, a collective awakening. The 14th century in Europe was scarred by plague, war, and despair. Yet from this darkness, a flowering began. Art, science, philosophy, humanism. The Renaissance, Michelangelo, painting ceilings that still make us weep. Leonardo sketching flying machines centuries before planes. Galileo pointing a telescope to the heavens, seeing moons circling Jupiter. Civilizations transform just as people do, from ashes to awakening. The Renaissance was humanity's phoenix moment. And you, too, carry a renaissance within you, transformation. In the Psychuan warned that transformation is not a linear ascent. It is spirals, circles, rhythms. You will feel the shadow again. You will doubt again. But each time, you rise a little higher, see a little further, like climbing a mountain path that winds sometimes downward, sometimes upward, yet always toward the summit. Transformation is not one event. It is a lifelong unfolding, guided vision. The summit amid, standing at the base of a great mountain. You begin to climb. At first, you stumble. The path is steep, but then, slowly, you gain rhythm. You breathe deeper. You move with strength you never knew you had. At last, you reach the summit. The horizon expands in every direction. Clouds part, sunlight pours. You see that every struggle, every step, every shadow was leading you here. This is transformation. The unveiling of perspective, the test of true transformation. True transformation does not mean leaving pain behind. It means carrying it as wisdom. Mandela once said, "Resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for it to kill your enemy." Transformation replaces resentment with forgiveness, despair with resilience, fear with love. The test is not whether you fall again. It is whether you rise differently. Wonderful, Lila. The fire of transformation now begins to spread beyond the self, beyond the lone seeker, into something vaster, the collective heartbeat of humanity. Chapter 12. The Power of Collective Rising. The ripple of one becoming many. Every transformation begins in silence, within one person, one life, one soul. But transformation is never meant to stay small. It ripples outward like rings across. Water, it becomes movement. It becomes uprising. It becomes the power of collective rising. When a single voice refuses silence, when one light refuses to dim, the darkness trembles. The spark of resilience becomes the wildfire of revolution. You are no longer just yourself. You are the echo of millions. You are part of the eternal march of humanity. Historical echo. Rosa Parks, one woman, sat down in Montgomery, Alabama, refusing to surrender her seat. That single act carried centuries of sorrow and centuries of defiance. It was not just Rosa Parks. It was the voice of the enslaved, the prayers of the oppressed, the dreams of the unborn. Her act became a movement. The Montgomery bus boycott was born. A preacher named Martin Luther King Jr. rose from obscurity into history. This is how collective rising begins, one quiet moment of courage, amplified by the courage of others, guided meditation, joining the march. Close your eyes. Hear footsteps, thousands of them. Steady, rhythmic, unstoppable. You join the march. You are not alone. To your left, a stranger. To your right, a friend. Voices rise, singing the same song. With each step, you feel the strength of humanity. With each step, you understand your shadow healing is part of a greater healing. Whisper, I rise with them. They rise with me. Jung on the collective. Carl Jung spoke not only of the personal unconscious, but of the collective unconscious. The deep reservoir of shared symbols, myths, and memories that unite humanity. The archetypes of hero, mother, sage, shadow. These are not yours alone. They belong to all. And when enough people awaken to their inner journey, the outer world changes. This is why revolutions succeed. This is why empires fall. This is why ideas never die. The collective flame of freedom. Think of India's independence movement, a people bound by centuries of colonial rule, rising not with swords but with marches, boycotts, hunger strikes. Gandhi's Salt March was not a single man's walk. It was a civilization reclaiming its dignity. The fall of the Berlin Wall, families divided for decades, came with hammers, with bare hands, with songs. A wall of concrete could not withstand the rising will of millions. The Arab Spring, sparks lit in Tunisia, spread like wildfire through nations, showing that even silence has a breaking point. The collective rising is the most powerful force in history. It is humanity remembering its strength. Suspense in collective rising, yet collective rising carries its own suspense. For when the many awaken, the powerful resist. Empires cling to their thrones. Dictators tighten their grip. There is always a question: will the uprising succeed, or will it be crushed? The suspense of revolution is the heartbeat of history, but even when uprisings are crushed, the memory remains, the seed is sown, and the next generation will rise again. Guided vision, the torch, relay. Imagine yourself holding a torch. The flame is fragile but steady. You pass it to another. They pass it again. Soon, thousands of torches light the night. No darkness can consume it. This is collective rising, the handing down of light, until the whole horizon burns with hope. The philosophy of solidarity. Philosophers remind us that no human being exists in isolation. Aristotle called humans zoon, Politikon, political animals, beings made for community. Martin Buber taught that life's meaning emerges in the I. Our relationship, the sacred encounter between people. Desmond Tutu gave us Ubuntu, I am because we are. These truths tell us that healing the self is not enough. Healing must ripple into others. Transformation must be shared. Story of suspense. Tiananmen Square picture. A lone student standing before tanks, fragile against steel. The world watched. In breathless suspense, would the tanks roll forward? Would the uprising fall? Though crushed, the image endures. It lives in the collective unconscious of humanity as a symbol of defiance. Sometimes, Collective rising does not win the battle, but it always wins the memory, the seed, the myth, guided breath, breathing as one breathe in. Imagine not just your lungs, but millions breathing with you. Exhale, feel the exhalation spread like wind across continents. Inhale again, you are part of the universal breath. Exhale again, you are never alone. Music of the uprising, every movement carries music. Negro spirituals that carried enslaved souls through the night. The drums of African independence movements. The chants of protesters in every language. Freedom, justice, bread, peace. Music is the voice of collective rising. It turns fear into courage, silence into thunder. And tonight, as you listen, let the rhythm of history beat in your chest. The march of history brings us to the precipice, that fragile edge where all that has been built teeters, where movements and souls alike tremble before collapse. Chapter 13. The Edge of Collapse. Standing on the precipice, every great story reaches a point of unbearable tension. Every life, every movement, every nation arrives at that razor-thin edge, the edge of collapse. It is the moment when the fire burns. Lo, when betrayal strikes, when strength falters. It is when leaders are imprisoned, when the people are scattered, when hope seems a lie. And yet this edge is necessary, for without it, resilience would not reveal its deepest power. Historical echo. Abraham Lincoln in the midst of the American Civil War. Abraham Lincoln watched as the Union faltered. The death toll climbed beyond imagination. Generals failed. Allies wavered. At moments, the United States seemed destined to dissolve forever. Lincoln himself wrote of being the most miserable man alive. The edge of collapse weighed on his spirit, and yet, in those very nights of despair, he found words to steady. A nation, with malice toward none, with charity for all. From collapse, a deeper vision emerged. Guided meditation. The fragile flame imagine holding a candle in the storm. The winds howl. The flame bends, sputters, almost dies. Your hands shield it, trembling. You whisper, stay alive, just a little longer. This is the essence of surviving collapse, protecting the fragile. Spark until dawn returns. The archetype of trial. Carl Jung would call this the night sea journey, the mythic descent into chaos, where all seems lost. Every hero faces it. Every movement endures it. Odysseus cast adrift, Christ in Gethsemane, Mandela in prison. The archetype insists, before resurrection, there must be descent. Before dawn, there must be darkness. The betrayals of history collapse often comes not from enemies, but from within. Julius Caesar fell not to foreign armies, but to the knives of his own friends. The French Revolution devoured its own leaders, drowning in suspicion and blood. Revolutions across the world faltered when unity shattered into division. Betrayal is humanity's sharpest wound. It is the moment when trust itself collapses, and yet, betrayal too has its lesson. Only what is unbreakable survives. Guided reflection. Your own edge, close your eyes. Remember a time when you nearly gave up. A time when collapse felt certain. Breathe into it. Do not flinch. Feel the weight of that despair. Hold it in your chest, and notice you survived it. The edge did not consume you. It transformed you. Suspense in collapse holds the greatest suspense of all. Because at that edge, no one knows the outcome. Will the movement perish? Will the leader fall? Will the dream dissolve into dust? This is the unbearable tension of history. At every collapse, the story might have ended. but it did not. Because someone, somewhere, held on. Stories of collapse and renewal. Winston Churchill in 1940. Britain stood alone against Nazi Germany. Bombs fell nightly. Collapse seemed inevitable. Yet Churchill's voice thundered, "We shall never surrender." His words alone kept a nation breathing. Mahatma Gandhi in 1942. The Quit India movement saw leaders jailed, protesters beaten, dreams delayed. For years, collapse seemed total. But when independence finally came, it was stronger because it had endured the brink. Harriet Tubman, each journey back into the South, risked capture, death, and failure. The Underground Railroad trembled at collapse each night. But her faith, "I never lost a passenger," turned collapse into triumph. Guided vision, the bridge of shadows. Imagine standing before a bridge of shadows. It sways, it cracks. It may crumble beneath your feet, and yet you step forward. One step, then another. With each step you whisper, even at the edge, "I move." And as you walk, the bridge holds. Because courage makes the path real. The philosophy of collapse philosophers remind us, collapse is not the enemy, it is the crucible. Nietzsche. That which does not kill us makes us stronger. Kierkegaard. Faith is only born when reason. Collapse is Camus in the face of absurdity. We rebel, and that rebellion is meaning. Collapse, then, is not failure. It is the necessary breaking point that reveals the unbreakable, suspenseful moment. The Cuban Missile Crisis. For 13 days, in October 1962, the world stood at the edge of nuclear collapse. One wrong move, one wrong word, and humanity itself could have ended. The suspense was unbearable. And yet, through fragile restraint and trembling diplomacy, collapse was averted. It reminds us, sometimes survival itself is a miracle-guided breath. Holding on, inhale deeply, as if gathering the last reserves of your strength. Exhale slowly, as if releasing despair itself. Repeat, each breath is proof you are still here. Each breath is defiance against collapse. From the precipice of collapse, we now step into the mysterious current of reversal, that sudden and almost miraculous turning of the tide when despair begins to loosen its grip and history bends toward redemption. Chapter 14. The Turning of the Tide. The first flicker of change. Every storm has a moment when its fury begins to fade. Every war, every struggle, every personal trial reaches a point where the tide, once against us, begins to turn. It rarely happens with trumpets or fanfare. It begins subtly, a shift in the wind, a rumor of hope, a decision quietly made. But when it comes, it transforms everything. Historical echo. The Battle of Salamis, 480 BCE. The Greeks, outnumbered and fractured, faced the might of Persia. Collapse was certain, and then a naval battle in the narrow straits of Salamis turned the tide. The Persian fleet, too large to maneuver, faltered. The Greeks, unified and desperate, found unexpected victory. That moment preserved the fragile experiment of democracy, shaping the centuries that followed. The tide turned, and with it, history itself, guided meditation, feeling the shift close. Your eyes, imagine standing at the shore as waves crash endlessly against you. Each one pushes you back, drags you under, leaves you gasping. But then the rhythm changes. The waves soften. The pull weakens. You find your footing. You realize the tide is no longer against you. It is with you. Breathe into that relief. This is the sensation of survival after despair. The archetype of returns. Joseph Campbell named this Moment in myth as the return with the elixir. After collapse, after descent into darkness, the hero discovers a turning point and begins to rise again. Odysseus sails. Homeward, the phoenix lifts from its ashes. The prisoner hears the first whisper of freedom. The tide turning is not victory itself, but the promise of it. It is the whisper you will endure. Abraham Lincoln's tide in 1863. With the Union bleeding and the nation divided, the tide seemed lost. But at Gettysburg, the Confederate advance broke, and in the same year, Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation reframed the war itself. The tide turned from mere survival to moral purpose. What seemed collapse became destiny. Guided reflection, your own turning. Think of a moment in your life when you almost surrendered, then something shifted. A word, a hand, a breath of grace. That was your turning of the tide. Hold that memory close. Let it remind you, tides always shift. Suspenseful, reversal. Dunkirk, hundreds of thousands of Allied troops trapped on the beaches of Dunkirk. Collapse was imminent, and yet an armada of small boats, fishermen and civilians, crossed the channel. They carried soldiers home, one by one, until an army was saved. Winston Churchill called it a miracle of deliverance. It was not the end of the war, but it was the turning of the tide. Guided vision. The river's bend. Picture yourself rowing a fragile boat. For hours, the river dragged you toward a roaring waterfall. You felt certain you would perish. And then, the river bends, the current shifts, the roar fades. Ahead lies not destruction, but new horizons. This is the turning of your tide. The philosophy of reversal. Philosophers remind us, change often comes at the breaking point. Heraclitus, the way up and the way down are one and the same. Hegel, history advances through contradiction, where collapse itself generates renewal. Lao Tzu, new beginnings are often disguised as painful endings. The tide turns not in spite of collapse, but because of it. Suspense and renewal. Martin Luther King Jr. 1963, Birmingham. King sat in a narrow cell, accused of disturbing the peace. It seemed his movement might fracture, and yet from that cell came the letter from Birmingham jail, words that pierced the conscience of a nation. What looked like collapse was the turning of the tide. Guided breath, receiving the slowly, imagine drawing in fresh wind at your back. Exhale gently, releasing the weight of despair. Again, each breath carries you forward. Carried now by a tide that no longer resists you. Suspense in history. Didth allies stood at a precipice. One invasion, one gamble across the stormy channel. If it failed, collapse. But it did not fail. D-Day turned the tide of the war. Europe began to breathe again. Suspense gave way to reversal. The personal tide history may show us grand tides, but in every human life, the turning comes too. The patient who finds healing after endless nights of illness. The artist who, after rejection, finally discovers an audience. The soul who, after grief, learns to laugh again. These are the tides turning quietly in our hearts. Guided closing. Standing on new ground, stand now at the shore of your own life. The waves no longer crash to drown you. They bow at your feet, lifting you forward. Whisper to yourself, the tide is turning. I will rise. The tide has turned, yet the night is not fully over. There is always a moment, fragile, uncertain, where light has not yet broken, and the shadows seem deeper than ever. This is The moment before dawn, when suspense sharpens, when time itself holds its breath. Chapter 15. The moment before dawn, the suspense of silence. Imagine a battlefield just after the clash. The ground is quiet, smoke hangs in the air, and no one knows who has won. That is the moment before dawn, not defeat, but not yet victory. In your life, you've known this pause, a silence where everything seems suspended. You've waited for test results, for letters, for decisions that would alter the course of everything. In that waiting, your soul trembled. This is the universal pause, the breathless stillness before. The light breaks, historical echo. Valley Forged, the American Revolution staggered. At Valley Forge, soldiers shivered in rags, starving, forgotten. It seemed the dream of liberty had collapsed. But in that winter silence, something happened. The army held on. Washington endured. By spring, they emerged forged in suffering, ready to fight again. Valley Forge was the darkest hour before dawn. Guided meditation, waiting with breath. Close your eyes. Breathe in, slowly. Feel yourself in that still place. The world, not yet. Lit, silence, pressing. Notice how every sound becomes sharper in the darkness. Your own heartbeat is loud. Even the smallest flicker of hope feels enormous. This is the suspense of waiting. Archetypal, darkness. Carl Jung wrote, "In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order." The moment before dawn is when that secret order begins to form. The unconscious stirs. Dreams rise, shadows shift. It is in this hour the transformation readies itself. Though unseen, the mythic hour, myth after myth, marks this suspenseful threshold. Inanna, Queen of Heaven, descends into the underworld. Stripped of all, she hangs lifeless. Before dawn, she rises again. Christ in the tomb, silent between crucifixion and resurrection. The Buddha, seated beneath the Bodhi tree through the long night. Demons taunting, waiting for first light. Always the suspense. Before dawn, historical suspense. The Cuban Missile Crisis. The world hovered at the edge of annihilation. Nuclear war loomed. For 13 days, humanity waited in paralyzed dread. And then communication, compromise, a step back from the brink. The world exhaled. That was the suspense before dawn. Guided reflection. Your suspense. Think of your own life. When have you waited, suspended, not knowing if joy or sorrow was coming? Remember that night, that silence. It did not destroy you. It prepared you. The philosophy of waiting philosophers to have dwelt in this hour. Skren, Kierkegaard. Faith begins in the dark, when reason cannot see. Nietzsche. One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. Simone. While waiting in silence is the highest form of attention. The moment before dawn is not empty. It is gestation, suspense in war. The night before, Dijon 5, 1944. Paratroopers waited in silence. Soldiers lay awake on ships, knowing dawn would hurl them into fire. The suspense of that night was almost unbearable, and yet it was the threshold of liberation. Guided vision. The still horizon. Picture yourself standing in a field. The stars fade slightly. The air grows colder. The horizon is dark, but something stirs. You wait. Your breath becomes the rhythm of the earth itself. This is the moment before dawn. Suspense, but also expectancy. The personal dark hour. Every person knows this threshold. The mother in labor, in agony, waiting for the final push. The student, heart pounding, waiting for results. The sick, lying awake at 3 a.m., hoping for strength to last until morning. In each case, the moment before dawn is agony, yet necessary. Historical breath. Gandhi's salt march after, walking for weeks. Gandhi bent to the shore and lifted salt. The suspense before this act was palpable. Would it matter? Would it spark change? It did. The small act of defiance became the dawn of India's independence. Struggle, suspense gave way to awakening. Guided closing, holding the stillness. Sit with this. You are in the night, but the stars above assure you dawn will come. You cannot rush it. You cannot summon it. You can only breathe, wait, and trust. And when it breaks, you will rise with it. The stillness breaks. The suspense of night yields at last to light. After all the silence, the suffering, the waiting, the horizon ignites with color. The world exhales, and with it, your soul awakens into a new vision. Chapter 16. The arrival of light. The first rays. You are standing at the edge of the horizon. The silence of night lingers, but then a thin line of gold pierces the darkness. Slowly, patiently, the light spreads, illuminating what was hidden. In this light you see, not just the world, but yourself, whole, scarred, resilient, alive. This is the arrival of light. Historical dawn, the liberation of Paris after years of oppression, fear, and silence. The bells of Paris rang. Liberation had come. Crowds wept in the streets as soldiers entered, not as conquerors, but as brothers. The city, long in night, saw dawn again. Guided meditation. Breathing with light. Close your eyes. Breathe in. Imagine the first sunlight touching your skin. Feel it warming you, dissolving the last cold shadows. With each breath, the heaviness of night lifts. With each exhale, you release the grief you carried. You are arriving with the light. Archetypal rebirth. Every culture has sung of this dawn. Egyptian myth, Ra, the sun god, dies each night, only to rise again at dawn. Christian faith, resurrection at morning's light. Death conquered. Persian tradition. Mithra, born at dawn, the symbol of renewal. Light is not just illumination, it is rebirth. The philosophical dawn. Philosophers, too, have spoken of this arrival. Plato's allegory of the cave, the prisoner, ascends to the light, seeing truth for the first time. Descartes, the moment of clarity. I think, therefore I am. Like the mind's first sunrise. Jung, integration of the shadow, when the light of consciousness unites with the depths of the unconscious. Dawn is more than a time of day. It is the state of awakening. The historical echo. The fall of the Berlin Wall, the wall that divided hearts and lives, crumbled. Crowds rushed, embracing, laughing. Crying light had returned after decades of concrete night. It was not just bricks falling. It was the arrival of light. Guided reflection. Your personal daunt. Think of a moment when you felt crushed, but then a shift. Perhaps small, but undeniable. You laughed after months of silence. You forgave after years of bitterness. You saw hope after endless doubt. That was your dawn. It came quietly, but it came. The science of light. Dawn is not only metaphor, biologically. Your body is wired to respond to it. Melatonin recedes, cortisol rises gently, preparing you for the day. Your heartbeat synchronizes with light. Your cells wake to renewal. Nature itself whispers, dawn is healing. Story of suspense to joy. Nelson Mandela, 27 years behind bars. Night after night, silence after silence. And then, minus 1990, the gates opened. Mandela walked free. The arrival of light was not just for him, but for a nation. Forgiveness, reconciliation, hope. That was dawn embodied. Guided vision, standing in the light imagine, standing in the light in the sun crests. Light washes over valleys, forests, rivers. What was hidden shines down now. See your own life illuminated. All the struggles, scars, failures, they were not wasted. In the light, they gleam like gold. The emotional turn, the arrival of light, always brings tears. After sorrow, joy feels overwhelming. After despair, hope feels like a miracle. And yet, this is the natural rhythm of life. Night must end. Light must come. The letters of hope, the letters of history's visionaries. And you hear dawn, Martin Luther King Jr. We shall overcome because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Anne Frank, I still believe, in spite of everything, that people are truly good at heart. Abraham Lincoln, writing in war, yet holding faith that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom. Each is a testimony of light. Breaking into darkness, guided closing, rest in radiance now, breathe deeply. Feel the light not only outside, but within you. Every dark corner of your soul touched, healed, illuminated. The dawn is not coming. It has arrived. The dawn has risen. Yet what follows is not just light, it is discovery. The world, once hidden in shadow, bursts with secrets waiting to be uncovered. Knowledge, art, and spirit awaken. Humanity, once crawling in survival, now stretches its mind toward the infinite. Chapter 17. The joy of discovery awakening to wonder you stand beneath the new sun. The air is fresh, the world alive, and curiosity stirs in your chest. It is not enough to survive anymore. You want to know, to create, to reach. This is the joy of discovery. A child's first wonder. Imagine a child watching a butterfly land on their finger. The child does not analyze, does not reduce. They marvel. The awe, untouched by cynicism, is the root of all discovery. It is the beginning of philosophy, science and art alike. Wonder, ancient discovery. Fire, long before cities, long before books, there was fire. A spark tamed in trembling hands. The first warmth against night, the first cooking of food, the first protection from beasts. That single discovery reshaped humanity. It was not just survival, it was joy. The joy of realizing the world yields its secrets if we dare, guided. Reflection, your own firewatt, was the first discovery that filled you with wonder. Perhaps reading your first word, perhaps realizing you could ride a bike, perhaps feeling the spark of love for the first time. That was your fire moment. A step into a bigger world. The philosophical joy. Socrates, wonder is the beginning of wisdom. Aristotle, all men by nature desire to know. Jung, discovery is not outside, but also inside, the hidden unconscious, revealed in dreams and symbols. Discovery is joy because it expands the soul. It stretches the horizon of the possible. Historical echo. The age of exploration sails against the horizon. A world thought flat revealed to be round. Maps redrawn, continents connected, oceans crossed. But discovery is never easy. It brings both joy and conflict. The world expands, yet with expansion comes tension. Still, the thrill remains. Humanity realized it was not bounded. Scientific dawn, Newton's appellate falling, apple. A man in contemplation. And from that moment, the laws of gravity, the mechanics of the universe revealed. Newton's joy was not in possession, but in unveiling. He wrote, "I seem to have been only like a boy playing on the seashore, while the great ocean of truth lay all undiscovered before me." The ocean of truth remains. Guided meditation. The ocean of truth, close your eyes. Imagine standing at the shore of an endless ocean. The waves glimmer, infinite, mysterious. Each discovery you make is like finding a new shell, a jewel, a treasure. You will never grasp the whole ocean, and yet, the joy is in searching. Artistic discovery is not only scientific, it is the painting of light on canvas, as Van Gogh did with the starry night. It is Beethoven, deaf, still composing symphonies that shook eternity. It is Rumi, finding God in the dance of the heart, in the music of longing. Art is the discovery of beauty hidden in the ordinary. Letters of Discovery, Einstein, to his son. 1915. Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. Da Vinci's notebooks, sketches of flight, of anatomy, of bridges. Centuries ahead of his time, Galileo's defiance, and yet it moves. Each letter, each word, is soaked in the thrill of discovery. Historical suspense, Pasteur and the invisible enemy a century ago. Unseen diseases ravaged humanity. But Louis Pasteur looked closer. Invisible microbes, the unseen enemy, revealed. Vaccines, sanitation, medicine, dawn for health, discovery saved lives. And with it came joy, a world less fearful, a future more hopeful. Guided reflection, your personal discoveries. Think of a time you discovered something hidden within yourself, a strength you didn't know you had, a talent you thought impossible, a resilience that only suffering could reveal. That discovery is yours to keep, an inner joy unshakable. The joy of cosmic discovery. Humanity looked up and walked on the moon. For the first time, Earth was seen from outside, a fragile blue marble suspended in black infinity. That image changed everything. Borders seemed petty, conflicts small. We had discovered perspective. The joy of discovery was cosmic, the spiritual. Discovery beyond science, beyond art. There is the discovery of the soul. The Buddha under the Bodhi tree, Muhammad in the cave of Hira, hearing the first words of revelation. Jesus in the desert, emerging with a message of love. These were not inventions, they were awakenings, discoveries of spirit, of truth. Eternal, guided vision. The inner laboratory, you are a scientist of the soul. Close your eyes. See your heart as a vast laboratory, each breath an experiment, each thought a revelation, each silence a discovery. Within you lies an undiscovered country. The emotional climax discovery is joy because it redeems suffering. All the nights of despair become meaningful when a truth dawns. Every failure is revealed to be a stepping stone. Edison, after thousands of failed attempts, said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Joy is not in success, it is in discovery. Discovery has lit the torch, but a torch means little if carried alone. Fire becomes festival only when shared. Knowledge, art, and spirit bloom, not in solitude but in communion. Humanity's next great step is not finding, it is uniting. Chapter 18. The celebration of unity. The first gathering, the dawn of unity, is as old as the first circle around a fire. Humanity gathered, not merely to eat or to survive, but to tell stories, to sing, to remember. In that circle, fear was softened, joy was multiplied, life was celebrated. Unity is not just living together. It is belonging. Guided reflection. Your own circle, close your eyes. See the people who make you feel safe, not the largest crowd, but the true circle. The ones who celebrate your victories, carry your sorrows, and remind you who you are. That circle is your first unity, historical echo. The Olympic Games, 776 BC, Olympia. Warring Greek city-states paused. For a few sacred days, enemies became athletes. Competition replaced combat. The games were not just sport, they were unity. Humanity discovered joy in gathering, in celebrating together rather than destroying. The power of music. Consider music. One drum beat is simple, but when joined by flutes, voices, strings, harmonies, a symphony is born. Unity transforms sound into music, individuals into choirs, hearts into celebrations. Think of Beethoven's Ode to Joy, the Ninth Symphony. He was deaf, yet he composed a song where voices joined in unison, proclaiming brotherhood. The music outlived him. Unity sings eternal. Guided meditation. The festival of souls. Imagine yourself stepping into a festival at night. Lanterns glow. People laugh, children run, music plays. You are one among many, yet not lost, carried. Your soul dances with theirs. No one is excluded. This is the celebration of unity. Historical suspense. The Fall of Walls, 1989, Berlin. A wall that had divided a city, families, nations for decades fell. Not with armies, but with hands, hammers, and tears. People climbed, embraced, danced. On its ruins, unity was not an idea that day. It was flesh and blood. It was celebration. Philosophical joy. Ubuntu. From Africa comes a word, Ubuntu. I am because we are. Identity is not solitary. It is woven from others. You exist not in isolation, but in communion. Unity is not sameness. It is harmony in difference. Letters of Unity. Martin Luther King Jr., 1963. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Tagore's poetry. The same stream of life that runs through my veins runs through the world. Jung's dream vision. Humanity sharing an unconscious symbols echoing across cultures. Unity is written across time. Guided reflection. A shared breath-take, a slow breath in. Now imagine the billions of others breathing at this very moment. Each life is different, yet each breath is the same rhythm. The world itself inhales and exhales. This is unity, one great breathing body, celebration in ritual pilgrims circling. The Kaaba in Mecca, monks chanting in a Tibetan monastery, choirs singing in cathedrals, villagers gathering for Eid or Diwali or harvest festivals. Unity finds voice in ritual. It reminds us that we are not alone. The suspense of division, but unity, is fragile. History is scarred by war, by division, by walls erected between people. Yet every time, unity returns, because the human soul cannot survive in isolation. Division exhausts, unity heals. That is why joy always belongs to the gathered, guided. Meditation, the tapestry. Imagine a vast tapestry stretching across the universe. Threads of every color, your life is one. Alone, a single thread is fragile. Together, They weave an unbreakable pattern. This is the celebration of unity, the art of belonging. Unity in science. Avon discovery celebrates unity. DNA revealed that all humans, black, white, east, west, share the same genetic roots. We are one family. The stars tell us the same. Every atom in your body was forged in a star billions of years ago. Unity is written in biology, in astronomy, in physics. We are not only united by choice, we are united by fact. The cosmic dance astronauts who saw Earth from space speak of the overview effect. No nations, no borders, only a glowing blue sphere, fragile, shared. They wept, realizing humanity is one crew on one ship, floating through the dark dot. This is cosmic unity. The emotional climax. Unity is not a theory. It is joy multiplied. It is sorrow halved. It is the dance, the festival, the embrace. It is the laughter of children, the chorus of voices, the raising of hands together. To be human is to celebrate together. To be whole is to belong. Unity is a festival, yet no festival lasts forever. Candles burn down, music softens, crowds disperse, and then silence. But silence is not the end. It is the soil in which new music is born. Life does not march forward in a straight line. It circles back again and again. The ancients knew this. Carl Jung knew this. Every heart that has ever broken and healed knows this. Chapter 19. The eternal return. The circle, beneath all things life, is not a line, it is a circle. The sun sets, but it rises again. Winter freezes, yet spring returns. Despair crushes, but joy follows. Every sorrow carries its echo of joy, and every joy carries the shadow of sorrow. This is the eternal return, guided reflection. Your own cycle. Think back to the hardest moment in your life. Did it end you, or did it eventually shift, soften, open into something new? Now remember your happiest moment. Did it last forever? Or did time gently move you back into struggle, into growth, into longing? Both are true, both will return. This is the rhythm of existence. Historical insight. Nietzsche's challenge. Friedrich Nietzsche imagined a test. What if a demon whispered, "You must live this life again and again, exactly as it has been, for eternity"? Would you curse that demon? Or would you embrace life so fully that even eternal repetition would be a gift? This is not despair. It is an invitation to live so deeply that the eternal return becomes joy, not prison. The seasons, as teachers, the farmer plants, harvests, rests, waits. The soil knows cycles. The earth itself breathes in seasons. To live is to align with the circle, not to resist it. Despair, too, is a season. And just as winter yields to spring, so despair yields to renewal. Guided meditation. The wheel picture. A great wheel turning slowly in the night sky. Upon this wheel are symbols: birth, love, loss, grief, joy, wisdom. The wheel turns endlessly, and you ride upon it. You cannot stop the wheel, but you can learn to move with it, to trust its rhythm, to know that what goes down will rise, and what rises will someday return. This is the eternal return. Spiritual echo. Eastern wisdom, Hinduism, speaks of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, rebirth. Buddhism teaches the wheel of existence, where suffering repeats until awakening breaks the cycle. The Taoist Yin-Yang reveals that every moment carries its opposite: sorrow inside, joy joy inside. Sorrow, the eternal return, is not punishment. It is the way of things. It is balance, letters and speeches. The cycle in words, Marcus Aurelius. Time is a river, a violent stream of events, glimpsed once and gone forever, yet the whole repeats. T.S. Eliot in 4 quartets. What we call the beginning is often the end, and to make an end is to make a beginning. Chief Seattle. All things are connected, like the blood which unites one family. Whatever befalls the earth, befalls the children of the earth. Even the great voices knew. Life is a return. Suspense, the fear of repetition, and yet we fear it. The thought of repeating mistakes, heartbreaks, wars, losses, it terrifies us. But the truth is this: the cycle is not exactly repetition. It is return with change. A spiral, not a circle. You are not the same person you were in your last sorrow. Your wisdom deepens. Your spirit grows. Every return carries a new note. Guided reflection, spiral of growth. Imagine a spiral staircase. You walk upward. At each turn, you see the same window, yet from higher ground. The view changes as you rise. This is the eternal return. You revisit, but never as the same self. Each cycle makes you greater. The darkest return, war history, too, repeats. Wars return, empires rise and fall, injustice reappears. But even history spirals, slavery abolished, rights expanded, knowledge preserved, though the shadow returns. Light rises with greater force each time. The eternal return is not hopeless repetition, it is struggle refined. The joyful return, festivals. Why do we celebrate birthdays, New Year's, holidays, again and again? Because joy itself asks to return. We find comfort in repetition. The cycle of celebration reminds us, life is not linear consumption, but rhythmic renewal. The eternal return is what makes joy possible. Cosmic vision, the stars return every 365 days. Earth completes a circle. Every night, constellations return overhead. The universe itself breathes in return. Astronomers say galaxies spin like vast wheels. Perhaps all of existence is one great eternal return. Guided meditation, embracing the cycle. As you breathe in, imagine joy. As you breathe out, imagine sorrow. Inhale, exhale. Neither lasts, both return now. Surrender. Say silently, I am part of the eternal return. I rise and fall. I fall and rise, and I grow. Emotional climax, from resistance to acceptance. At first we resist, clinging to joy, cursing sorrow, but acceptance transforms the cycle. When you see sorrow as preparation for joy, and joy as gratitude for sorrow, you step into wisdom. Life is not a tragedy, nor a comedy. It is a dance, endlessly circling, endlessly alive. The wheel has turned. From despair, through shadow, through resilience, through joy, you have walked the circle of life. Now, the journey expands beyond the circle itself, beyond time, beyond return, into that stillness where joy is not fleeting, but eternal. Chapter 20. The happiness of eternity. The great threshold. Close your eyes. Breathe. You have carried sorrow. You have discovered resilience. You have embraced the eternal return. Now, imagine a door before you, a threshold beyond cycles, beyond endings. When you step through, you enter the happiness of eternity. Eternity, what it is not. Eternity is not endless time. Endless time would be exhausting, joy stretched too thin, sorrow repeating without relief. No, eternity is timelessness. A moment so full, so complete, that it needs no before and no after. It is the eternal now, historical whisper, Augustine's visionist. Augustine once asked, "What then is time? If no one asks me, I know. If I wish to explain, I know not." But he knew eternity. He said, eternity is the present that never passes away. The happiness of eternity is not far away. It is already here, in every moment lived fully. Guided reflection. Your eternal moment. Think of a time when you were so immersed that you lost track of hours. Perhaps in love, perhaps in nature, perhaps in prayer. That was a glimpse of eternity. A happiness beyond clock and calendar. The voice of poets Rumi. Try to accept the changing seasons of your heart, even as you have always accepted the passing seasons over your fields. Yet, beyond change, lies the beloved, timeless, eternal William Blake. To see a world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. Emily Dickinson, forever is composed of nows. The poets remind us, eternity is not afterlife only. It is here. It is now, the cosmic perspective. Look upward, the stars you see. Tonight are millions of years old. The light itself is ancient, yet it touches you now. That is eternity. Not endlessness, but timeless connection. The universe, vast beyond measure, is eternal, and you are not separate from it. Guided meditation. Dissolving the self, imagine yourself standing beneath a vast night sky. Your body softens, boundaries blur. You are not just you. You are breath, wind, starlight. You are eternity experiencing itself as a human for a little while. Let that dissolve your fear. You have always been eternal. The happiness of letting go. Happiness is not possession. It is not clinging to joy, nor fleeing sorrow. It is release. It is flowing with the eternal current of existence. When you let go, eternity carries you. Like a river carrying a leaf. Like space carrying a star. Voices of faith, every tradition glimpses eternity. Islam, every soul shall taste death. Then unto us you shall return. Yet the return is not an end, but the eternal presence of Allah. Christianity. Eternal life is promised, not as endless time, but as unbroken union with divine love. Buddhism, nirvana, is freedom from cycles, the timeless stillness beyond birth and death. Hinduism, moksha, is union with the eternal self. Beyond the dance of samsara, all point to the same horizon. Happiness, beyond time, suspense. The last fear, but here lies the fear. If eternity is timeless, will I lose myself? Will I vanish? The truth is paradox. The little self dissolves, yes, but what remains is not nothingness. It is everythingness. It is you, but larger. Not I, but we. Not fragment, but wholeness. This is the happiness of eternity, guided. Reflection. Your eternal flame. Close your eyes and imagine a candle. Its flame flickers, fragile, small. This is your earthly life. Now imagine a vast sun rising, golden, endless. Your candle flame merges with the sun. It does not vanish, it shines brighter than ever. Within the eternal fire. This is your soul in eternity. The final unional journeys lead here. The warrior's struggle, the lover's longing, the seeker's questions, the poet's song, all dissolve into one great silence. A silence not empty, but full, radiant with meaning, shimmering with joy. You are not apart from this silence. You are the silence. You are eternity. Historical echo. Einstein's comfort when his friend Michel Besso died. Einstein wrote, "He has departed from this strange world a little ahead of me." That means nothing. People like us, who believe in physics, know that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. Einstein found comfort in eternity. Time itself was not final. Love, friendship, being eternal. The happiness of eternity, in daily life eternity, is not only in death, nor only in mystical visions. It is in the simple things, a child's laughter, a lover's gaze, a quiet sunrise, a prayer whispered in the night. These moments shine forever. They are never lost. They belong to eternity. Guided meditation, entering eternity. Breathe deeply. Let go of the weight of tomorrow. Let go of the memories of yesterday. Feel the stillness of now. This now is eternity. This peace is eternity. This happiness is eternity. Rest here. Closing of chapter 20. The happiness of eternity so ends the journey, not in despair, not in endless return, but in the still flame of joy that is eternity. Sorrow has been carried, shadow faced, resilience found, wisdom grown, joy embraced, and beyond it all, eternity opens, not as an ending, but as the truth that has always been. You are eternal. You are whole. You are happiness itself.